If I can 2-putt, great. If I 3-putt, fine. Let's move on.
Where is golf heading, do you think? I mean, are we getting to the point of AI caddies and stuff like that? Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Birdie Golf Club podcast. Lovely to have you here if you're here for the first time, or if you're a regular listener or watcher of the podcast. Please hit that subscribe button, hit that follow button. It really helps out the podcast and doesn't cost you anything. So I would greatly appreciate that. This week, we have a fantastic guest. We have David Hunter, who is the founder, CEO, creator of ShotScope. If you're unfamiliar with ShotScope, then all you need to know is that they are empowering golfers with the technology that they need to improve their game. And we have a fantastic chat, me and David, and we talk about the inception of ShotScope, where the idea came from, what the process was like, taking that to market, but then obviously the more important things for you as listeners, what that means for your game, how you can improve, being armed, rather, with better data, understanding where your game's falling short, with shots gained and looking back on the round and seeing where your misses were, seeing your average distances with clubs. There's so much available to you, and that's thanks to the work that ShotScope are doing, the tireless work that they're doing. And talking to David was a really great insight for all of us into what goes into creating a company like ShotScope and what that's going to be like moving forwards as well, with technology gaining pace as it always does. So I hope you enjoy the episode with David. I've got nothing really to share this week. I'm nursing a bad back. So, you know, that's pretty much where I'm at. And it's cold again. So I'm not going to hold up this episode any further. Like I said, if you're enjoying the podcast, hit that subscribe button, hit that follow button on whichever platform you're on. And thank you so much for joining me on this journey. Let's get to our chat with David Hunter. Nice one. So what does a Monday look like for you, David?
Yeah, Monday's the meeting day. So, right from 8 a.m. all the way through to about 3 p.m. means every hour, pretty much. Different teams. Sets up the whole week. A bit on finance, R&D, commercial, exciting stuff, right? But look, it works really well. The Monday meetings really well. But yeah, very much a day where I don't get anything done, but I'm in meetings all day, which is good. Really good.
So it sort of sets the targets for the week or like the beginning of the month, that kind of sort of thing, ready to push through for each day.
Yeah, I mean, we're all a bit like yourself. You know, we're always trying to move to the next stage and try to grow and evolve and change and bring new products and new technologies to market. So we run pretty hard, and the key thing about running pretty hard is you have a structure around it. So you know that's where Mondays. We have a couple of leadership meetings during the week, and you have to be kind of religious about having those meetings every week, you know, or else, you know, projects can go all over the place. But no, we run quite hard here, and we always have done, probably always will. I think it's just the way we work.
The ShotScope seems a really driven like brand, especially in the tech space, and I know that obviously all kind of started with you. I know you're going to be humble about it and say that there's people that you couldn't have done it along without the way, but you're definitely obviously the start of what is ShotScope now and still a huge part of it. I always ask the guests the same question. I'm going to ask you the same question. When did you first pick up a golf club? What's your earliest memory of picking up a golf club?
Yeah. So, I mean, I played golf with my grandfather way back. I think I would have been 9 years old. And my grandfather was a big golfer, played every week, but didn't maybe take it seriously. Mm-hmm. And he probably introduced me to golf. Actually, my very first golf club is still here. And it's like...
ShotScope is the tool that you don't have in your bag yet and the one that you need. Whether you like wearing a watch on the course, whether you like using rangefinders, whether you just like having the tags on your clubs to know your distances. ShotScope gives you all of that. Before using ShotScope, I was unaware of the best parts of my game and the worst parts of my game. But using their watch and their rangefinder has enabled me to work out where I need to improve, using shots gained data to accurately see where I can improve. And I want that for you too. So if you use the code Birdie Golf Club on the ShotScope website, that will get you 15% off the entire range. So make sure to head to the checkout, put in whatever ShotScope product you want, enter code Birdie Golf Club, and you will get yourself 15% off. It helps support the podcast and can help improve your game. We're in the year 2025, soon to be 2026, and you know what your most precious commodity is? Something we wouldn't have dreamed of in the 90s. It's actually your data. And companies are harvesting that data, they're using it to promote ads to you, they are selling your data, and it happens day in, day out. So make sure you protect yourself out there. With a NordVPN account, you can make sure that your data stays private to you. You can even change what country you want to appear to be in to maybe get better deals or access Netflix from the US or Netflix from Spain. NordVPN is a great tool to add to your online arsenal. And you can click the link in the description below and you can get yourself a fantastic deal through the podcast, which helps support the podcast and enables you to be safer online. Click the link below, and currently NordVPN have an amazing Black Friday sale on where I think you get 74% off a yearly subscription. Stay safe online. Make sure you're making the most of your online privacy with NordVPN. I'm cold, you're cold. Winter golf is very much here. So let's dream of a better place. Or even better than dream, let's go to a better place. If you use code Birdie double points at Golf Escapes, it will get you double escape points on your next trip. And you can book a trip, be away in the sunshine, enjoying the beautiful weather, the fantastic golf and beautiful amenities of some of their incredible hotels that they have listed. Golf Escapes will handle the whole thing. They'll set the entire package up and you can enjoy every single moment without a worry. I used Golf Escapes to book my trip to East Sussex National recently for just a brief break, and everything was handled perfectly, to my golfing for the weekend, to my wife enjoying a beautiful spa treatment whilst I was out on course. Peace of mind, just a fantastic experience and a great team over at Golf Escapes. Head over there now, use code Birdie double points to get yourself double escape points on your next trip.
It's like a sand wedge, but it's like massive head, really heavy, wooden shaft. It's actually, the grip is green tape that is with it. And I remember using that club for years, just hitting it around the park that was behind my house. I think it hit it okay, bizarrely. Now got it developed a bit of an overswing, probably for using these clubs that were meant for adults and were from the 1960s, 70s, to be honest.
Bit heavier.
You got me into it, and actually I didn't really take it seriously. I could always hit the ball okay. I always enjoyed it, I could always go, like, we used to go to a little par 3 course at the weekends with my grandfather, and I could always kind of play the game. I was involved with martial arts. I was involved with Taekwondo at an international level, so I used to travel doing Taekwondo all over Europe, and I used to train 6 days out, 6 nights a week. Golf came back into my life when I was like 22, 23, and that's when I really got addicted to the game. And ever since then, I've just been obsessed with the game.
Amazing. Yeah, it's such a common story, isn't it, where golf sort of like people fall out of love with the game slightly, or not out of love, but other things sort of ramp up and then sort of come back to the game. And where does your history in sort of obviously the tech space begin? When did that all start for you? And obviously your learning along the way when it came to that.
Yeah, I mean, I've always been interested in tech. My father had a car garage, so I used to go and repair cars, try to understand how cars and technology worked. And then when I was at high school, I just started to get involved with electronics and software. Wasn't really sure what I was going to go and do as a career and where I wanted to go with a career. And impromptu went and did a course in mechatronics, as it was known, engineering, and did okay in that, enjoyed it. That was a combination of mechanics, electronics and software. And from there moved on to do an electronics undergraduate and then an electronics master with business as well. And thoroughly enjoyed just trying to solve problems. And got really lucky. I went and worked, after leaving university, I went and worked for a couple of large businesses where we were like working on the very early stages of 4G, 3G infrastructure and started to really deep dive into technology, and then moved into a consultancy where I would design for medical, military, oil and gas, startups all the way through to blue chip organisations. And that really gave me a feel for lots of different types of technology. And I was, I was winning the work. I was doing the engineering requirements. I was doing the electronic design, printed circuit board layout, working with product designers on the strategy, how to design the product as well. And but it gave me an insight into how to design a lot of different technologies for a lot of different companies, and that was pretty cool. And look, I always had my own ideas, I always had my own inventions, I guess, that I was thinking about trying to do something with. And I impromptu came back to university to be a high school teacher, believe it or not, back in 2012. And ShotScope, the idea behind ShotScope had been sitting on 3 pieces of paper for about 3 years. Yeah, seriously, I'd used this process to take, and we could talk about the process, but I'd used this process to take my handicap from 16 to 5 in about 2.5 years. And, I was running about with 8 different notebooks, gathering all my stats, gathering all my analytics. I was on the range, working out dispersion and distance and all sorts of madness, right? And I can remember the pro at my home club saying, "David, you ain't going to play in the PGA Tour. What are you doing?" And
That's nice of him, isn't it?
very, very genuine. But it worked, right? My handicap went from 16 to 5. I won quite a few competitions at the club, and I was playing good golf, but I wasn't hitting the ball drastically different, but I was managing my game. And effectively what I was doing, I was gathering all this data every week, and I was putting into a piece of software I developed that then spit out all these different charts and graphs and tables. And it was quite painful every single week. It was like a full-time job gathering all the stats.
I bet, yeah.
And one morning I just sat down and wrote up an idea that was effectively evolved many years later, I have to say, into ShotScope. But it was not overnight.
I bet not. And did like you were saying before, with that sort of working in multiple different sort of tech arenas, say, and you said that the problem solving was something that really interested you about that. Is that what basically sort of was the fundamentals behind what ShotScope is all about? Is the problem solving of what is a game that frustrates so many people, and like you were probably saying, I'm guessing as a 16 handicapper, was frustrating you at the time. So was that kind of like a natural melding that went on there?
Yeah, look, it's not one thing, right? So, I'm a bit unique in that I was so passionate about the game of golf. And where that came from was when I did martial arts, I competed for the Scottish team, the British team. I won Scottish championships, British championships, travelled and competed at very large events throughout Europe. And I trained from the age of about 12, 13, I was training with adult black belts. And these guys some of them were like world champions. So we had a club. Our club was for 17 years straight, it was the best club in the UK. It won the most medals at the British every single year. And I think that created this mindset of constant improvement, marginal improvement, small gains, constant small gains. And, we were doing stuff like that with Taekwondo. My instructor was doing marginal gains way back in like the 90s, before it was ever in the public domain. And I think that mindset from sport I brought to golf. And then when I started playing the game and was really frustrated by, so what happened is I got introduced to the game. At 22, 23, my now father-in-law took me for a round of golf, perfect sunshine. It was July. We're in Scotland, remember, right? So, this weekend in Scotland, we're now in November. It's not very nice. It's difficult to play golf. But we went and played in July. The course was playing firm. It was warm. It was like 25 degrees Celsius, no wind. And I went and shot like 82, right? So I've not picked up golf clubs in years. I've went and had to look for my clubs at the back of a garage, and I've went and shot 82. And I instantly became hooked. And then was like, right, I shot 82. Why can I not go and shoot that tomorrow or the next day or the next day? So for the next couple of years, I worked on my swing. I started to play a lot of golf, and I was playing with people who had played for the team at the golf club for 20 years. So guys that I'd grown up in school with, that I used to play in soccer teams and other things. And all of a sudden you're like, wow, you can really play this game. and they're hitting these big, beautiful draws, you know, and they're putting out their miles, and I'm getting this kind of weak slice at the time. It was kind of like, let's call it a fade stroke slice.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I kind of went down to the range, and I went, well, when I did taekwondo, I put loads of effort in, I put loads of time in, I trained really hard all the time, and I had improvement. And then I came to golf and thought, well, how hard can it be to I'll just go down that range, start hitting balls, I'll be able to improve. And after a couple of years, after like 18 months, I was like, right, wait a minute, I'm reading all the books, I'm looking at all the videos, I'm spending 2 hours an evening at the range, and I'm not getting better. I'm now shooting like 85 to 90. Wait a minute.
What happened?
Where did this go wrong? And that's where that little process was the reason for starting to gather all these stats, all these analytics, all these insights, and understanding how to manage my game on the course. But I had to go through that pain. You know, I had to go through that pain of, right, look, I mean, and obviously, you know, I now do hit a draw. I now hit it a very different way. I also have a problem with a hook nowadays if I don't play enough. You know, it is funny how, you know, you're evolving your swing, and actually a lot of times, if along with that work, you understood how to manage your game on the course, all of a sudden your score might start to jump and improve, you know. But yeah, I went through that whole process, and it was highly frustrating watching these guys who had known for 25 years and didn't really understand how good they were at golf.
Yeah. Yeah. And they're hitting these shot shapes. At the time, you're like, oh, I could only dream of that, you know. But that essentially took you down a bit of sort of a rabbit hole of playing golf swing, which wasn't as important in the grand scheme of things as what sort of course management and everything like that. Going back to that book you kept, those stats that you kept, what were some of the ones now that are still very much at the forefront of what ShotScope do, that were kind of the fundamental ones that you kept during the time? I'm guessing you can remember every single one of them.
Nearly. So I had eight notebooks, and it was like off the tee, approach play, chip in, putting. You know, you broke the game down into areas and understood where you were strong and weak. So I've always been quite good at chipping and putting, you know. So my short game has always been good, probably practice, right? My weakness is off the tee. So if I get the ball in play, the chances are I'm going to score well, you know. So but look, the driver is the most forgiving club in the bag. So, you know, you need to hit that off the tee for, you know, I don't hit the ball miles. So I need to get the driver and get it off the tee. And if I get it in play and get it on the fairway, I'm going to have a good day and score. But the ones straight away that jumped out. So for most amateur golfers, the stuff and the key pieces of data that jump out and the key stats, know how far you hit your clubs. You know, so we help golfers improve by 4.1 shots in 30 rounds. And I'll be perfectly honest with you, a lot of that is down to just knowing how far you hit the ball. You know, if we go down to most golf clubs and talk to 15, 20, 12 handicaps and say, how far do you hit a 9-iron? How far do you hit a 7-iron? How far do you hit a 5-iron? They typically, the amateur golfer typically remembers those better shots. So they remember they once hit their 9-iron 145 yards. But actually, if you go and look at the stats and the data and you gather 25 9-iron shots, it'll tell us they actually hit it 137 yards. And then you have to take out the really good ones and the really bad ones. You really only should be looking at it's not even a middle ground, because your bad ones could be really bad and your good ones could be exceptional depending on the wind. And we do all that automatically with our technology now. But way back in the day, I quickly realised if I just know the exact distance of how far I hit the clubs in my bag, and if I'm honest and truthful about it, I'm going to make better decisions. And then I was always big on having the yardage. So I quite quickly, being an engineer, being big on electronics and technology, I got a GPS really early on, when GPS was in its infancy, really. And I used that. So I had exact distance. So by the time I'm putting all these hours in the range and I'm measuring my distance and dispersion, you know, I would hit 10 balls to the 100-yard marker, 10 balls to the 120, 10 balls to the 130. And then I'd go and figure out exactly how far I'd hit those shots. And so therefore, when I was hitting to, for example, the 120 marker, I'm sitting going, right, I am actually hitting a pitching wedge 115, you know? And therefore, when I go to the golf course and someone my GPS device gives me I've got 115, 120 to the middle, I can then select the club. And all of a sudden you have so much confidence.
Mm.
And actually what happens a lot of the times for amateur golfers is we then mishit it. But at least we mishit it with the right club to start with. We're maybe 10 yards short and we're on the front of the green. Whereas if you're saying, I think I hit my sand wedge 120 and you mishit it and you hit it 90 yards, you can be in a lot of pain, a lot, bunkers. And that was the most notable. If you get the right club in your hand and know your distances, your mishits are going to be closer to the pin, less painful, impact your score less, because you're going to have easier up and down opportunities. And then the other key one that I started to recognise around the green, I play around the green a bit like I play from 200 yards. I use different clubs. So, I use a 6-iron chip and run. And I know you can't quite use that everywhere, or I'll select a lob shot and, get it onto the green, get it rolling as quick as you can, even if you've got loft in your hand. But I very much look at around the green like like a bit like the long game, in that you should select different clubs and decide to play different shots.
Mm-hmm.
And part of that is also accepting if you hit that 90-yard shot, if you select your sand wedge, you've got 120 yards, you hit it 95 yards, you put it in the front bunker and it's right up against the face. The next thing is accepting you're not Phil Mickelson, and and take that, right, this is the third hardest hole in the course. I've made a mistake. I've got a handicap. All I need to do is get this on the green. And if I can 2-putt, great. If I 3-putt, fine. Let's move on. But accepting that this is most likely, I'm not playing par now, I'm playing bogey, And I think, so this has nothing to do with how well you hit the ball. It's how you manage your game. It's how you manage each aspect of your game to try and maximize the potential score that you can have. And look, we're not all capable of hitting the ball 300 yards. So some people are. Unfortunately, I'm not.
I got fortunate with a couple of early sort of ShotScope sort of shots that I had, where they were downhill par fives, and that was lovely. It inflates the stats a little bit, but that's the good thing about the play and average, obviously, stat as well, that I'm sure we'll get into. When you had these notebook, what for you was the light bulb? We spoke about the fact that it was a 3-year idea that you had sitting there waiting. What was the light bulb moment for you of how to turn that into technology that's usable for golfers on the course, and obviously the ShotScope, tech that we see now? What was that moment? How did that come about?
You're solving a problem. My son loves building technology, and I just had a conversation with him at the weekend about the best businesses are built on solving a problem. So effectively for 3 years, I gathered my stats, like every single round, every single night at the range, every single bounce game, I gathered my data. And the problem, so I was getting the benefit of all that data, and I was playing better, scoring better. But the problem was, all of a sudden I'd created this big job, 3 hours every week of entering data. And I couldn't find an app that would automatically gather stats and analytics. I couldn't find a wearable at the time that would automatically gather all this data. Remember, this is back in like 2008, 9.
Different world.
Different world, completely different world to where we are today. So in coming up with an idea that, and ShotScope had to be 100% automatic, passive tags, and coming up with that idea, I was actually solving a problem for myself. And a lot of the best businesses are founded on just solving a problem, So solve that problem, put it in a notebook for 3 years. And I had this little kind of midlife crisis in my late 30s where I went off to university again to become a high school teacher. Thoroughly enjoyed that, teaching, I taught design technology, as you can imagine. And actually, I went to an event. I got talking to someone about another idea I had, and eventually the conclusion was that was a terrible idea. But this person looked at my book of ideas and said, "Oh, I'm big in golf. That looks amazing. I would use that." And straight away there was a moment of, right, I need to go and talk to a whole load of people about this idea. So fast forward 3 months, we had won Edinburgh University Startup of the Year. Yeah, just for the idea. But I'd proven a wee bit of technology. And I'd went down to London and something called Innovate UK and pitched the idea at Innovate UK, and we'd won British Startup of the Year. We didn't have anything really set up, but I had a little bit of tech proven. But we'd raised through that period of about 6 months, we'd raised like $50,000, $60,000 to go and actually start building a business. And I knew I had to go all in. But you have to remember, I just left a very good engineering job. I'm now not getting paid as a teacher. Actually, I'm sorry, this would be at the end of my kind of teacher training. So I was now getting a wage, but quite a bit lower. And you know, my wife is kind of saying, well, wait a minute, you know, you're telling me we're going to start this, you know, this new business.
Yeah.
Are you going to get paid? Well, no, that's how these businesses work. So what I did was, and look, this is how you should, you know, and I went out to the market and I spoke to the market. And I think quite often, you know, we can worry about that, right? As people that come up, you know, as engineers, as people who build technology and innovation, we worry about talking to the market. But we should talk to the market and understand, one, if there's market fit, you know, two, if people will actually purchase the technology. So what I did was I spoke to 800 golfers over 5 different golf courses. I actually stood there with a questionnaire and asked them, you know, do you want to gather your stats? Do you want analytics? Do you want insights? Would you pay X for this type of technology? It was about, and I'm going back a long time, it was about 85% wanted the stats and would pay to have that type of data. So that gave you the moment of, right, we need to go all in. And I think, look, once I had that data, it was only like 2 weeks later, I went and handed in my notice as a teacher and started this full time. And then, so that was actually January 2014 that I went and worked on this full time on my own for a year. And my wife was actually 6 months pregnant. So my son came along, you know, as the business was getting started, my son came along as well. But yeah, look, it's, you know, I think when you come up with the idea, you need to verify that the consumer, in this case, the golfer, is actually going to want that idea. And that's a scary moment, but you have to go through that.
Yeah, I mean, you picked your moment, David. You really did. You know, I mean, that sounds
I know.
so
Well, look,
stressful.
the other side is, you know, the thing I've learned and through all this process is there is no perfect moment. You know, if you've got an idea, and it is an idea where other people are going to use it, go and talk to people about it and see, you know, and then I'm not saying everyone should run and leave their job.
Yeah. Going to start a mass exodus of teachers just leaving their jobs now.
This is not career advice here.
It could be a terrible idea, like whatever the other one was that you were pitching in the first place to the guy. So, like you said, getting that feedback and seeing that there was a gap there in the market. What were, because obviously you got the 15% that, you know, weren't interested, and I'm guessing people sometimes say they're interested in technology, and then when it actually push comes to shove and they've got to purchase it or they've got to use it, whatever it may be, there can be a little bit of resistance. What would you say was the biggest challenge in, once you had the technology ready, actually pitching that to people and showing them, hey, look, because I'm guessing there were teething issues, right?
Yeah. Look, I mean, look, short tracking, so we are founded on short tracking. So, you know, the business, and for your audience that haven't heard of short tracking, basically, you know, you can short track through an app, you can short track through devices manually, but ShotScope's short tracking is 100% automatic. You put small tags, they all come pre-programmed. You put these small tags into the top of each grip. There's no battery in there, and you go out and play, and our watch talks to these tags to see the exact location of every shot, you know. Yeah. And look, it's quite a complex process under the hood. You know, we've got these large antennas. We send power through the air. We look at AI algorithms to actually see your swing. We actually post-process the data 4 times against our golf map database, take out 700 variables to do with the game of golf, and then we show you all your stats. Now, the consumer, the golfer, doesn't know any of that's happening, right? But of course, with being such a complex process, you know, and we've refined it over 10 years. But the first 4 years were just making the technology work. And look, I think it's fair to say that our V1 product had some flaws. Even our V2 product had some flaws. And actually, for us, you know, the way I view technology and innovation is you're always evolving, you're always changing. And, you know, short tracking, you know, we still miss a couple of shots per round. And, you know, we're working in here on missing, you know, no shots, you know, and I think that evolution, you know, for short tracking, it needs to get to the point where it's like, you know, the golfer comes off the course and straight away the round's there and everything is 100% perfect. And that's when short tracking, I think, will be a mass mass market. Yeah, look, in the early days, one of the things I love about our users is the feedback. We're very fortunate. We get feedback, we get honest feedback. And way back in the early days, that feedback drove us to evolve and change and improve the technology. And I'll be honest with you, in the early days, for the first 4 years, we were working nights, we were working weekends. And when I mean nights, I mean through to 11 p.m. every single night, trying to make that algorithm better. And it wasn't really until our V3 came along. Our V3 was the first product that had really good product market fit. And that was in 2020, so if you think, between 2014, we're evolving, we're improving, we're bringing new products to market. And, that whole ethos, and it's part of our culture, is really going to stand us in good stead for the next 10 years. But shot tracking, shot tracking's complex. And I mean, our technology, our shot tracking technology inside the watches themselves actually take up about 50% of the space. So we've still got to do full course maps and, front, middle and back GPS and other pieces of technology, but we've got half the space that we should have to do it. So look, it's not easy, but that's why we're a bit different in the market.
Yeah, I'm gonna say, because I've used other, I use like the Arcos. I've tried the Arcos sort of stuff before, and I think one of the big hesitations was before having the X5 was probably the tags for me, like, because I've seen my mates literally sitting there on their phones whilst we're about to play a round of golf, struggling to try and get these things working, and that was my hesitation. I was like, I don't want to be that guy, But then I got the X5. Got the tags, like you said, all pre-programmed, ready to set up. And I think literally as always in technology, the simplest thing is sometimes the thing that just is the game changer. And I'm sure it's not simple necessarily to do, but it's simple for the user. And it is that innovative tag system where it just picks it up by being like near the watch. You don't have to tap it on the front or do anything drastic with it. Literally, as a right-handed golfer, watch on my left hand, ask me all that beforehand as well to obviously make sure that we're all set up correctly. And I don't have to think about it. Like for the whole round, I can use the technology, but I don't have to think about the shot tracking. And that's key. And like you said, there are the odd shot missed. And like you said, you want to get that to 100%. But for me, being able to look back on a round and see, 95, 98% of that round tracked without me having to think about it just is a complete game changer for someone like me. I like to sit and either remember the positives of the round or really scour over the negatives. So having that there and not having to try and remember it is, don't get me wrong, sometimes lovely to try and forget about it. But like you said, for the user, we don't see what goes on behind the scenes, and I had no idea that those type of things were happening. But it really is important to the golfer to know what happened during that.
Look, and that's the key. The best technology works in the background. The best technology doesn't interrupt whatever action it is you're doing. So for us, it's that go and play golf, enjoy your game, get the benefits of GPS and front, middle and back. But on the other side, our shot tracking technology, it has to be seamless. It has to all happen automatic as you play in the background. And now we're one of the best in this area. And even then we look at it and go, it can be improved. Narcos technology is very, very good if you're comfortable carrying a phone. We always had the ethos of, we want the golfer to leave their phone in their bag or leave their phone in their locker. And we want you just to go and play, and all this data gets collected. And look, that's how the best technology works that way, whether it's, if you look at cars, the engine firing away and, mini explosion underneath the bonnet, the driver doesn't want to know any of that.
Yeah.
Just wants to go from A to B. Yeah. Well, that's how, we view technology that way. You should come off the golf course, you should click one button and you should see 100% of your stats, analytics, insights. You see maps detailing every single shot, and you should see your strengths and weaknesses. And of course, we all want to look at our strengths. Do we all want to look at our weaknesses? But that's where you should go. But yeah, look at in those early days, the premise and the ethos of what we're about to help golfers improve and enjoy the game, that's still where we are. It just so happens now we have laser rangefinders, we have watches, we have handheld devices, we have independent shot tracking devices, and So you can get the benefit of ShotScope in a lot of different ways, and a lot of different, because not every golfer wants to wear a watch, so shot tracking, we want every golfer in the world to experience it, but not every golfer wants to wear a watch.
Yeah, no, that for me it was a surprising thing actually hearing golfers that didn't like wearing a watch, because to me it's kind of like a natural thing with playing golf. It doesn't really affect me at all. But I've got a mate who's like, I cannot have a watch on my wrist. Like anything on my wrist is a no-go. And knowing that there's obviously products out there now, like which one of those products would you recommend to say to somebody that doesn't like the watches? Obviously watches do it all, but which one would you say would be best? Would it be the rangefinders? Would it be handheld?
Yeah, look, I'll be honest with you. I actually struggled a little bit with wearing the watch in the early days. So I was a handheld. My go-to was a handheld device. I never really used laser rangefinders. I always like to see the carry over a bunker, and I like to see front, middle, and back. So my strategy was really simple as a handicap golfer. Like let's say I was playing off a 6, 7, 8. Strategy was really simple. If the pin was at the middle to the back, I would typically be looking for the back distance and then try to figure it out. If it was at the front, I'm looking for the distance onto the green, the middle, and most likely some sort of carry distance over a bunker. And obviously as an amateur golfer, sometimes I don't hit it straight off the tee. So therefore, when I'm in the wrong location and I'm looking at a 150 yardage marker, I could have as much as 170 on the angle, So I always like the handheld, and I like the amount of data I could collect. The rangefinder, I always felt I was better having the front and the back distances to a green than I was the exact distance to a pin. I'm probably just not good enough to hit the exact distance. And look, I know a lot of golfers want that distance, So I was always the handheld golfer, and I probably still am, to be honest. But I do wear a watch at the moment. So, we've got some stuff coming out, and it'll be interesting to see which direction I go when something like this comes out. And look, that's where it's really important. We now have 12 different products, and it's really important to understand there's different types of golfers in the world. Now, where it gets really interesting is when I look at my father-in-law, for example, 20 handicap. I was trying to get him to go and use a watch. And actually, we sent him out to test about 2 years ago with one of our newer rangefinders that was about to come to market, and he loves it. And he's a rangefinder guy, and I never seen that coming. Never ever seen that. So I think what is good, if you can be as a golfer open-minded to different devices. You might take you a couple of devices to find the one that is the best fit for you, or go and talk to your PGA professional, or in the UK and the US, there's tons of amazing retailers that you can go in and you can pick up a rangefinder, or you can, have a look at a watch, or you can have a look at a handheld and say, actually, I think this is the device for me. And you can actually go and see and feel and touch the device before you decide what one to buy. Everybody's different. That's the challenge. That is the challenge.
And people feel different on different days as well. I've had days where, I'm like, right, serious golf day today, watch on, I'm tracking everything. And then you have literally, I was at a sort of stay and play where I went with my wife, and I went out and played like 5 holes in the evening, and I just took my rangefinder with me. And there was something really nice about that, because it felt a little bit less formal and stuff like that. So like you said, having those 12 different products does mean that you've got something for everyone, and something for everyone on a different day as well, depending on how they're feeling. So that must be, do you look at that now and just, this is your baby, in many ways, do you look at those 12 different products with just like real pride?
Yeah, well, one of the cool things is, like I've designed products forever for loads of different companies. I think I worked on 27 different projects before I founded ShotScope. The thing that I love our team's passion. So the product that comes out the far end, yeah, look, it's cool and it's amazing, and you see it in advertising and you see it in retail. By that time, we're usually trying to think of the next product. But the bit that I really love, like we have like arguments in here about, features and technology and how things should work. And it's because we're all really passionate about what we're building. And it's that bit that I love the most. We're really lucky. The team is just, a lot of people say to me, we're now a team of 43. We're actually recruiting at the moment, so we're probably going to be a team of 50 by 3-4 months from now. And, a lot of people, and look, there's plenty in the public domain, about ShotScope, and a lot of people come and say, oh, it must be great. And actually the bit, and it is cool, but, particularly when I used to work on this on my own, and, you now see where all these different product lines are. But the bit that I always find really cool is just the passion, the team's passion for what they do. And it's always like right there, it never kind of dilutes. They just seem to love and enjoy what they do. And I love and enjoy what I do. And that comes through. And when we're designing, or when we're doing customer support, or when we're working on a new product, or bringing a product to market, the passion these guys have got, we spoke about that just before, we obviously started to record about, some of those team members and what how keen they are to help people, and like that's what it's all born out.
Everyone I've spoken to at ShotScope sort of like bleeds ShotScope, that sort of like that sort of feeling. And I remember like talking to Jen on the podcast, she would just constantly bring up ShotScope because it's like it's such a huge part of her life that there's almost like that it just became part of the conversation naturally, because like you said, she has that passion for the project, the product. She has that passion for the company, and obviously that's something that just works its way through, which I guess that's a way better way of putting it. Obviously the products are what they are, and like you said, you're always innovating, but the people, as always, people behind businesses are what make the business, and
care. They really care, and that you can feel that when a product comes out the other end. They really care, and look, there's two parts of that. Passion for golf is underneath that as well. We have a lot of golfers here that love this game, and I love this game, and I think that passion for what we do and the game itself just creates this really unique mix. Don't get me wrong, it's interesting that when we were just talking before I came on the call, they'd been out playing yesterday, and we'll just say ultra competitive is the best way of putting it. That passion and that competitive side, it's great. It's great for our business, but when they're competing against each other, I think it gets kind of heated and interesting at the same time.
Frosty atmosphere maybe on a Monday morning.
They were all quick to say who had won and what had happened and where the the good and the bad shot.
That's brilliant. I love that. It gets carried in to the work week. That's amazing. That's what you want. That's that passion, like you're saying.
Golf's in our DNA, right? It's part of, we bleed golf, and that comes through as well with what we do, which is cool.
Absolutely. And talking of the innovation, and obviously I know you like you said, you got products coming up, and I'm sure you don't want to delve too much into what they may be before they're released. I mean, if you do, you're welcome to. But like you're saying, with those conversations you're having of where do you see the future of golf and the future of golf technology specifically, where is golf heading, do you think? I mean, are we getting to the point of AI caddies and stuff like that? I mean, what's your thoughts on what could be around in the the next 5 years, next year, whatever?
It's a really interesting area. Look, I think AI is amazing. I think it's got a bit to go. I think it's easy to build something quick now that maybe delivers 70% of the solution for a problem. And that's where AI can really help that. Look, I mean, until, we've looked at building Caddy platform. Let's stay on the AI Caddy platform for a minute. We've looked at building that we've got all the data. We've now got, I think it's over 400 million shots in our database. But we're growing at like 100 million a year and more actually. So, we have the data there. We own our own maps. So we know exactly where every almost blady grass is on the golf course. We know the bunkers, we know the greens, we know the common pin positions, we know where the trees are. Sometimes we do have the heights and sometimes we don't have the heights of the trees. And even then, with all that information, when we look at caddy platforms, we still see gaps, So, I can take all your data and I can say that your 9-iron goes 145 yards. And I can tell you the difference in height, so I can look at slope on an approach shot, but I can't tell you the ground conditions. I can't tell you the weather conditions. I can't tell you, is it humid and hot and your ball's going to go 10 yards further? Is it cold and damp and your ball's going to go 10 yards less? I can't tell you if you've got a 10, 20, 30 mile an hour wind coming from the right or the left. So there's this element here, I think, when it comes to golf, where technology can get us so far. and can definitely help the golfer make better decisions. And the more the golfer gathers data through shot tracking, for example, about how far they hit the ball with each club and where their mishit is, their common mishit, or are they leaving putt short, it can definitely help influence some sort of caddy platform to make suggestions. But actually, golf, it's quite a lot of independent skill. You know, one of the reasons that our team are so good is that a lot of them are very experienced golfers, you know, and therefore they bring that knowledge of the other part that there's just that golf DNA, that golf, what's the right word? You know, that golf innovation or golf understanding or golf knowledge. And therefore, I think I'm the biggest technology guy you'll ever find. But I think there's a real limitation on, it still comes back to the golfer making the decision. So I don't think it's about replacing coaches, PGA pros, caddies. I think it's actually about arming the people in the industry with the best tools to help the golfer play better. You know, and so, you know, we've got this amazing industry in golf where these PGA professionals, the knowledge that they have about swing and course management, and you just can't learn that very quickly. You know, and let's be honest, you know, I'll look at our guys here that have played on Walker Cups and European tours, or Jen was actually a top 100 female amateur. And that, you know, if you look at that person, they started to gain experience at 5-6 years old. And they played golf as a golfer for 20 years, as an addict. And you cannot replace that golf knowledge. And that's the same for coaches or caddies. So I think the best way, and I said this at an event about a year ago, the best way for companies like ShotScope is, yeah, we want to innovate. We want to bring new technologies to the market, new features, new experiences for golfers that help the golfer. But we also want to work with industry. You know, we're a golf technology company. We're not a technology company operating in golf. We're a golf technology company. So then it's, you know, it's listening to how do we help coaches? How do we help the PGA professional? How, you know, how do we help greenkeepers? You know, because there's a whole industry here. So the honest answer is, I think technology is moving so fast. Yes, there'll be radical changes in different places. But coming back to people, or, you know, the golf industry is people. I think we need to build our technologies around the people, and that's not just the golfer, that's the industry. You know, we need to be at the forefront of that, and we need to, you know, be a brand that thinks that way and moves innovation on. It's not about saying, right, you've got exactly 150 and get your you know, get your 8-iron. We know you hit your 8-iron 150, get your 8-iron. And then the golfer stands there on ultra firm conditions with a 20-mile-an-hour wind behind them and hits all over the green 15 yards. We need to, you know, as technology people, we need to be recognizing that and doing better. You know?
Yeah. I think
I don't know if I answered the question very well.
You did.
To be honest.
No, you absolutely did. Because I think
I basically said that technology is not the be all and end all. It's more about the people.
Yes. No, but I think that's a great point, because you see in so many, in sport as well specifically, where people get carried away with the technology and it actually rips some of the soul out of the sport. I think, you know, football for me, VAR has ripped the soul out of what football was. I mean, are they going to get more decisions correctly? The statistics will probably tell you yes. But can I celebrate a goal properly anymore? No, I can't. So has that really improved the sport? That's up for debate, and, you know, not a football podcast. Maybe I can do another one down the line at some point, you know.
I don't want to go on that one now. I'll pass on that one.
Get out of it. But it's the same. It's the same with golf. You look at, you know, when TrackMan Foresight and things like that came along, they completely ripped up what everyone thought the ball was happening with the ball at impact and what happened in ball flight technology. But it didn't completely destroy golf coaching and everything like that. It actually improved it, didn't it? I mean, you now see these guys armed, like you said, with the technology to help improve your game and understand it more themselves, and that continues to happen. With force plates and such like technology. So it's kind of like what you were saying. I sort of came at the angle of thinking, how is AI going to improve these things? And maybe there is, you know, scope for that to happen, but it's not to take away from the fundamentals that are there in the golf world. And I think that, you know, knowing that there's people like you, David, at ShotScope, who are like a forefront of the industry when it comes to golf tech, that don't want to take away, you know, what is the essence of golf, that can only be a good thing.
I mean, like, golf was here way before technology, right? You know, here for hundreds of years before we were here. So, that you'll never take away that moment when you strike the ball well, or you go and hit the ball 150 yards, 6 foot from the pin and make the putt. Doesn't matter how good we get the technology. That moment is why we play, right?
Oh, absolutely. And you know what, you said something earlier and it reminded me, I think Jen will get really angry with me if I don't ask you this question, because she said to me specifically to ask you, and I'm going to get it wrong, but I'm sure you're going to decipher exactly what I mean. But it was about, and I think you did bring it up with the own course maps that you have, and the fact that that is unique to ShotScope in the course mapping technology, I believe, that sets it apart from competitors in that way.
Yeah, look, I mean, we've been building our own maps for 10 years, and it really was born out of, we wanted maps to work a certain way, both in the app and in the devices themselves. So, when we process the data and say this was on the fairway, this was on the green, your shot was on the fairway, your shot was on the green, your shot was in the bunker, we needed the maps to be done quite a high level of detail.
Mm-hmm.
So we had to build software, we had to build a team. We mapped initially and got it all wrong and had to redo all the maps. Quite painful, I have to say. But, we now have an in-house team. We actually have a total of 6 in-house and 30 external working on the maps 24/7. So, it's a big USP. It's a big asset. Believe it or not, we update 8,500 golf maps a year. So, there is about 42,000 golf courses in the world. And look, that number can be sort of reported in different ways. And that's primarily because places like in the USA, you can have 3 9-hole courses at one location, And so but in reality, there's about 42,000 golf courses in the world. And we update 8,500 golf courses every single year. And it's quite a process. It can be quite painful. Look, I mean, it's, in Japan, you've got double greens. Before we mapped courses, I wouldn't have known that. In the USA, they can have 3 9s and you can play them in different orders. I wouldn't have known that as a UK golfer, The things you've learned here in the last 10 years, mapping courses is a unique little exercise. Golf knowledge, golf experience. But yeah, we've been through, particularly as we were trying to make the technology work, and alongside it, we were trying to build this map database. Pretty painful. But in the last 2, 3, 4 years, our maps are in a really good position now, and look, I'm talking about places where we maybe haven't had as many users like Japan, and now we've got quite a few users, and you go, right, the USA, Europe, UK, our maps have been in a good position for a long, long time. But in the last 3, 4 years, we've really worked on other territories to get our maps better. And we run audits every year we actually run audits all the time on different countries and different territories. And look, part of the reason we are good on golf maps is our customers, our users of our products, will actually message us and say, there's a new bunker, there's changes to the course, there's changes to layout. And that's really important. We encourage that. We want that because that allows us to maintain that database for other golfers. Yeah, it's not an easy process, managing that database of 42,000 golf maps.
Oh, I imagine. I mean, there must have been times where you thought about, third party, just, push that out and use that. But having the control over that and being able to make sure that it's up to date, and like you said, it's part of the passion behind what you do, right? And
yeah, big USP, and yes, we did talk to third parties way back. But look, we decided early on that we felt to deliver best solution for the golfer, we would need to build our own maps, and that set us off on a 10-year journey to try and make it work. But then look, I'm sure you're kind of realising a lot of the technology has been a 10-year journey.
Yes.
We've only been in rangefinders for 5 years, and the leaps and bounds on our technology and rangefinder technology, and that time has been blowing me away.
Yeah.
And tomorrow we'll learn something different. And you were asking about products that we'll bring to market. Yeah, look, we're working on new products. We're working on products that might not be in our lineup at the moment, and every day's a school day, so to speak, in that area.
Yeah, I can imagine. It's exciting though, isn't it? Like you said, with the amount of staff that you've got, keeping them just ready to go and excited for what's to come is probably just a huge part of your job now as well, right? I bet, you know, in some ways you might reminisce about the days of being by yourself and being able to just work on the product and stuff, but now it's a managing of people and things like that. It's
Look, to be honest, I'm so lucky. So early on, we set up a management team. One of the things that was fortunate is I used to go into these large organizations, medical, military, oil and gas organizations, and I could see the organizations that were structured really well, and I could see the organizations that weren't. And I also used to help startups. Some of them were structured really well, some of them weren't. So quite early on, even from 2015, we started to build a management team. So we've got like a management team of 6, and then we've got a secondary tier management team. And I'll be honest, Doc, of our 43 people we have working as of today, I've probably got 20 leaders plus in that. So I, if anything, I just need to keep them pointed in the right direction because we've got so much going. The enthusiasm, the work ethic, the hours that they put in, like, it's not really, getting them excited is not the problem. It really is not. It's making sure we go in the right direction is that, that if, and to be honest, we've got so many good people here, like, it really is not a difficult job managing the team here. They're brilliant. They're so good. I've got so many good, experienced people that it's never, so the enthusiasm comes through. If anything, I just need to keep it kind of in the right place at times. I'm very fortunate. I'm so lucky to have this team that, and the good ideas come from anywhere. They all really go above and beyond. It's that is the coolest thing of the whole journey, is seeing that. But yeah, no, I don't keeping them enthusiastic is not a problem.
Well, that's great to hear. And you spoke about the long hours, and I know that relatively recently ShotScope was looking to break into the US market, which obviously like a huge market. How have you found that?
Same again, it's long hours, and what I would say is we'll do the things that others won't. So what I mean by that is, we visit retail stores. My 2 sales guys, there's one retailer, they've visited 80% of their stores in the last 18 months. Now, remember, the USA is huge.
Yeah.
So you can imagine how many flights, how many hours in cars that is to do that. That's unreal. But yeah, look, we get out there, we go over to the US a lot. None of it's glamorous, it's all back of the plane, relatively cheap flights.
Yeah.
It's a lot of driving. I just was on a trip 2 weeks ago, so I spent 10 days in the USA 2 weeks ago, flying pretty much. I did 9 flights in 10 days. So yeah, and a lot of hours in the car, or not too many hours in the car, but probably covered 500 miles or something like that,
Definitely not glamorous.
But yeah, and a few mistakes with hotels that weren't the nicest hotels either.
No.
I'm certainly not going to name any hotel on this
But you
call.
won't be going back.
I won't be going back, that's for sure. But yeah, a few mistakes with hotels along the way. But look, in the USA, what I would say is, the retailers in the USA, they've always welcomed us in. They've always given us time, invested effort, met with us, spoke to us. And now I think we've actually, we're in with most major retailers in the USA. So I think we're in about 3,000 locations in the USA at the moment, and which is great, and we really only got that going about 3-4 years ago. My commercial director, Gavin Deere, my head of global sales, Scott Robertson, we've been working on the USA for 8-9 years in the background, going to events, going to the PGA show, networking, meeting people. So it's not overnight success. It's taken a long time, and it's still got a long way to go. And I think we now have, I could get this number wrong, I think we have 24 or 25 sales agents, independent sales agents in the USA now as well, and we work with distribution partners. Yeah, look, it's going well in the USA, and it's definitely the largest golf market. But like I said, I just spent a few weeks in the USA, and the cool thing about the USA, and it's really nice being someone who works in golf. Golf is cool in the USA. So, you've got like Steph Curry playing golf, you've got LeBron James, you've got music stars, you've got Tom Brady, you've got mega stars from all walks of life that are so passionate about golf. And therefore, golf is cool in the USA. Like things like Happy Gilmore, and that's kept the excitement going.
Yeah.
But golf is definitely cool in the USA, and I think a lot of golf is played in cars. You go out in your shorts and t-shirt. It's maybe a little bit of a different experience for the UK.
Yeah. Do you think that's going to make its way over here at some point, or what's your thoughts on that? Because it's quite
Yeah, yeah,
often a
listen,
debate of the podcast of where is it going in the
really,
UK?
look, I am the most ultra conservative person you'd find, right? I am that guy, my life is my family, ShotScope, playing golf, and that's what I do. You put me in front of golf on a Friday night with a couple of beers, and you give me golf during the week with my son, and I'm delighted, right? But I tell you what, I did go for a game of golf. It was with a group that we're potentially going to work with, and we had a few beers, and it was warm, and it was sunny, and we were in golf carts, and I was in shorts and t-shirts, and it was a Friday afternoon stroke evening, and oh my God, what a 4 hours. Thoroughly enjoyed it. Really enjoyed it. We played kind of a Texas Scramble format. We made it competitive. It was great. So when I played a lot of golf here in the UK, and it was 10 years ago now, unfortunately, because I just don't get the chance to play like in medals and competition. It was very kind of formal, I guess. So, look, I mean, what I would say about the formal stuff is it's really interesting. We play with a scorecard in our hands a lot in the UK, and I do think that helps our golf. But in the USA, oh my God, there's so much fun. At one point there was a speaker and music and blaring, and I'm sitting going, wow, this is great.
Yeah, yeah.
So I think there is a balance. And look, I mean, there's a lot of golf courses in the UK. I don't think speakers and beer and
Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't. Yeah, but I tell you what, there may be something. Like at the end of the day, I went to an event. So I went to the National Golf Foundation event, and they put up two really interesting stats about the USA. And I might get them slightly wrong, the number slightly wrong, but I'll be there or thereabouts in the right area. I think it was 1.2 million new golfers had came into the US last year. And I think it had been 1.3 or 1.4 million returning golfers. Now, to give you an idea, I don't know if we will have 1 million golfers in the UK that pay a club membership. I think in the UK there's about 4.5 million golfers. But how many pay a club membership? I think the last time I looked at this, it was like 800, 900,000. But this is where golf is definitely, UK, USA went up a bit. So, I mean, but 1.2 million returning golfers,
Yeah.
48 million golfers total. Now that they do count off course and on course, but even on course, it was over 30 million, you know? So we have to look at that and say there must be something that they're doing right, you know? We have to look at that and say, right, the amount of people coming into the game, staying in the game, at all demographics and all walks of life, there's got to be something we need to look at there. We might not copy everything because because it's a very different market, but
Yeah.
it's really, and look, there's a lot of serious golf in the USA. There's a lot of, there is still competition golf, there is still medals, but there's also a very fun aspect. And there'd be nothing wrong with some of that here.
No,
I don't think.
absolutely.
But it wasn't me that said that or my idea, right?
Yeah, I don't know. I think it seems like it's a huge thing. I think there's small changes that could be made just to make. I think golf should be an experience, right? And I think when you're a kid, it's always an experience because it's special to be out there, and the course is much bigger, and there's all those things. But when you're an adult, could it become just part of your routine because it's the same every time? And I feel like there's something there to making sure halfway huts are open and making sure they're open, making sure they're stocked. Simple little things that could just, if you could stop and the experience could be better, I think. And there's certainly, like you said, some notes we could take from the way the US does it. And, not everything's going to suit, is it? Not everything's going to work, but.
Well, I mean, the halfway hut element, how many times have we got through 9 holes and your playing partners, run out of snacks or has no drinks, and you're kind of raking in your bag to try and give. So I mean, the halfway hut's a great opportunity for the club to make some revenue,
Yep.
and look, same way maybe the drinks cart or the food cart. Yes, obviously it shouldn't be alcohol here in the UK, right? But can it be juice? Can it be water? Can it be a hot drink? There's definitely opportunities here. Definitely opportunities. And then my son's 11 now, and he's been getting into golf for a few years. And I'm very fortunate. Our course is split into 12 and 6. It just so happens the 12th hole comes back to the clubhouse, so you can go and play a back 6. And he wants to go to the range for an hour and, you know, do a bit of chipping or do a bit of putting. And, you know, I gamify it. I just make it games. Or so we do battleship putting where you have to line up the golf ball in front of the hole and you have to take out each of the golf balls before you get to make a putt.
Oh,
So
that's
you're
cool.
not focused on hitting the ball in the hole.
Yeah,
You're focused on a target. And we play, look, it was him that came up with that, not me, I have to say.
great.
And then we go and try and play 6 holes.
Yeah.
And you know, we're standing there on the 14th hole. It's the second hardest hole in the golf course. And even for the kids' tees, I'm looking at it going, you've still got 330 yards.
That's a long, yeah.
Yeah, it's a long way. So actually there's a thing, it's actually Golf Genius, Operation 36. You know, anyone who's listening who has got kids, I'm sure it's called Operation 36 by Golf Genius. Rory McIlroy is actually involved with it. And they play a hole from 50 yards and in. And once you can play the hole from 50 yards and in, you go to 75, you go to 100, you go to 125. And we've been starting to do that with Luke, my son, and that allows us to kind of compete a bit,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah,
at that stage. And so I think if we can just be, you know, if we can think about the game different, we can bring more people into the game and they'll stay with the game longer. You know, we can't have everyone playing off the backs.
No.
It's just somebody who's 11 years old. Eventually, yeah, they get to the medal tees, but it's got so far to go before he gets to that stage.
That's awesome, that Operation 36. I'm going to remember that because my son's had a little golf club in his hands since he was 18 months old. He's 5 now. And I take him to the simulators, which is actually a great, like anyone with kids, it's a great place to go because he can just, I mean, he hit like 100, I counted once just for fun, he hit about 150 balls in a space of like 45 minutes, you know, and he was tired and it was ideal. But that's a great way because then he can see results from what he's doing and you know, he gets a little bit of visuals from it, but it's not cold and wet in the winter, you know, because
then coming back to America, this is what America's done really well. They've got Top Golf, they've got simulator golf. Can they put technology, you know, TrackMan and Top Tracer has put technology into the driving range, and all of a sudden they can play games, they can have fun, and at some point a percentage of the golfers that go there will end up on the golf course.
Yeah.
And that's, you know, so you know, we've started going to Top Golf as a family, and my wife, who I don't think has got any interest in golf, she goes and she hits. You know, the kids get her to hit, and she hits, and she even appeared last month or the month prior. She'd watched a thing on social media where it showed, I think it was Gabby Golf Girl was this like putting the hands up, then rotating round, then hitting. And there she was doing this at Top Golf. So you try and get a better shot. So look, that just shows you how if we can have this weird crossover of tech and experience, whether it's on or off course, we'll get more kids into the game.
Yeah, which is what it's all about. There's so much going around now of like shrink the game, and because people can't get tee times, but they're trying to get tee times at golf courses where you'd expect it to be difficult, you know, and then it gets blown up into this bigger thing. But the more and more people that get into golf, the better it is. The better it is for the game because, you know, there's going to be a section of golfers that play right now regularly that are not going to be here in 10, 15 years time. So, you know, who's going to want to shrink it then? No, we don't want to see another foot golf era happening to 9-hole golf courses. You know, that's what we don't want to see. So, yeah.
Yep, as well. You know, we've had like COVID was an event that people engaged with golf, but a lot of people have stayed with it. So we are, you know, the golf industry is so different compared to when I joined the golf industry 10 years ago. It really is so different. And you're right, we want to keep that going. And look, there's loads of good in there. But there's maybe some places that we need to evolve and tweak. And look, I don't think it's major changes. I think it's just evolving and changing. And there's loads of people out there experimenting. But yeah, no, it's like the golf industry is in a great spot, you know. But yeah, what other sport, you know, the type of sports I used to do in my teens and early 20s, you couldn't do them at 70 and 80, you know, whereas we could go out and my son who's 11 and I could play and my father-in-law could all play together, all different golfing abilities at all different age groups, and we could actually compete. What other sport could you do that?
None of them. That's what makes golf completely unique. David, I've got two final questions for you.
Yeah, go for it.
And then I'll let you go because you've been amazing with your time and I do appreciate it. The first one will be, I'm guessing you've got to play some pretty cool golf courses because of, traveling round and, essentially being part of ShotScope, obviously, and getting that to golfers. What would be I'm going to ask for your number one, and I know that's going to be difficult, but I've got to ask that question. What's your number one golf course that you've played?
So the only thing I would say is I don't play as much as I should. Like a lot of it's like, whether it be finance meetings or meetings with partners in golf, they don't actually happen on the golf course, believe it or not. My sales guys, and my marketing team, they play golf all the time. But I kid you not, you're lucky. There's years gone by that I've played like 1 or 2 rounds of golf. It's terrible. So I actually have not played a huge range of different courses. But the one that I actually quite like, I like Kingsbarns in Scotland.
Yeah.
And the reason for that is my bad shot is like this pull draw.
Okay.
So Kingsbarn's got a wild amount of space on the left-hand side, so I can go and score well. I don't know if that's
Perfect.
I went. Well, it's terrible, right? It should not be that, right? But like Kingsbarns is also a beautiful course, unique course. The one thing about Scotland is when you go and play like a Kingsbarns or any links course at a certain time of night, or if you've got a nice evening and it's sunny and the sun gets low in the sky and you've still got light till like 10 o'clock, you get these weird long shadows. And I've been very fortunate. I think every single time I've played Kingsbarns, the weather's been amazing and it's had these big long shadows and just beautiful coast. So, and funnily enough, and look, it shouldn't be this way, but I guess as a golfer who likes to play well, I've scored well every time I've been there. So
it's often the overriding factor of what your favourite course is. It really is.
That's not the right rationale for picking a golf course at all. But
Kingsbarns is beautiful as well, isn't it? I mean, it's a stunning place. That does not surprise me. I like that, and I like the fact that it suits your game as well as being the reason. I'm playing this Thursday, at Annings Heath. It's a course down here, the waterfall course there, and just the same, capable of a bit of a hook at times, and pretty much every hole sets up that you're going to be okay. So.
Yeah,
I like that.
Yeah.
I like that.
We really shouldn't judge courses on that, but unfortunately we do as golfers, right?
Of course, they're the ones that stick in our minds. Yeah, that one suited me. And then last question, David. If there was one, I know this might be difficult, but if there's one stat that you think every golfer, no matter what level of the game, should really track religiously, which one do you think is the most helpful for people's game?
It's not so much a stat. It's more knowing how far you hit the ball with every club in your bag. Mm-hmm. You shouldn't guess how far you hit your clubs, or you shouldn't have an opinion on how far you hit your clubs. And I don't really care what technology you use to do it. Go to TrackMan, hit balls on a TrackMan, hire it for an hour. Go to a pro, hit balls in the range and get the pro to advise on how far you're actually hitting it. Use a ShotScope to gather your on-course data to figure out how far you're hitting it. And remember, with TrackMan, you're going to get carry. With ShotScope, you're going to figure out your entire rollout on that as well. But go and gather exactly how far you hit the golf ball. So when you're standing there with 150 yards to go, and you've got 150 yards to the target, you're not guessing. You are picking up the club that gives you the best chance of hitting the ball the closest to the hole or wherever the target is. But if you do that, you will gain strokes on the field. So that would be the one for me. That would be the one.
Perfect. I love that answer. David, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast. I'm really proud that ShotScope are a partner of this podcast, because I think the products, the company, the people, especially behind it, are help inspire me to get better through seeing what you guys deliver and do every day. And like I said, on course, it's a complete game changer. So I'd always encourage people to head over to ShotScope and make sure to check out the technology and put it as part of their game. Make your game better. That's what they're trying to do. So.
Very cool, Dave. Very much appreciated, and thoroughly enjoyed talking to you for the last hour. So thank you for having me on the podcast as well. I appreciate it.
You're welcome, Dave. Thank you ever so much. Cheers.